Now, I've been a diplomat for over 40 years, and in that time, I've covered a lot of ground. Somehow, this is my first ever trip to South Korea. And I had to actually check and double check to make sure that we were correct on that. So we've tried to squeeze in over the course of the past 4 days, 4 decades worth of seeing and doing. In particular, this visit has focused on 3 core priorities. The first is advancing UN Security Council efforts on matters related to the DPRK. Just yesterday, as you know, I had the opportunity to visit the demilitarized zone. The DMZ is one of those places where the past and the present collide, where the lines, literal and metaphorically, that divided the peninsula 70 years ago, not only remained, but unfortunately, I feel more deeply entrenched than ever before. And as I said at the DMZ, that re-entrenchment is owed to the DPRK's lawlessness both within the country and far beyond it. The DPRK continues to advance its unlawful weapons programs. Since the beginning of 2022, the DPRK has launched over 100 ballistic missiles, including 13 ICBMs. All the while, the DPRK has refused to come to the negotiating table, further isolating itself and its people from the international community. Let me be clear. Many times we've opened the door to meaningful diplomacy with the DPRK, and we remain open to dialogue, real, meaningful dialogue, without preconditions, because we know the people of the DPRK don't need more fiery rhetoric from its leadership. They don't need escalation. They need access to basic services and to rights. Over the past 7 decades, and especially in recent years, the DPRK has chosen munitions over nutrition, investing heavily in weapons of mass destruction and their delivery systems while ignoring the basic needs of its people. Civilians live in fear of torture and surveillance, assassination, and forced repatriation. During this trip, I had the honor of hearing from a number of extraordinarily brave North Korean escapees who are now living in South Korea and sharing their stories through film and food and more. I heard their harrowing stories, not only of their escapes from the DPRK, but of their lives inside the DPRK, including grave human rights abuses that they experienced firsthand. I was proud to hold the first UN Security Council meeting on the DPRK human rights since 2017 during the U.S. presidency at the Security Council this past August, and I look forward to continuing to have further discussions in the Council. I was also able to sit down with a handful of officials to discuss the DPRK's dangerous activity, among other things, of peace and security, matters of peace and security. In those conversations, we discussed Council efforts to counter the DPRK unlawful WMD and ballistic missiles program and its illicit means of financing them. That includes charting a path forward following Russia's concerning veto and China's abstention of a UN Security Council resolution that would have renewed the mandate of the 1718 Committee panel of experts. In these conversations, we discussed options both inside and outside the UN system. In lockstep with our ROK and Japanese partners, we will continue to have these conversations in the days and weeks ahead, because it's critical that all member states continue receiving independent and accurate reporting of the DPRK's ongoing weapons proliferation and sanction evasion activities. And that brings me to my second purpose behind this trip: to enhance trilateral cooperation between the United States, South Korea, and Japan, both in the Security Council and beyond. This builds on the historic Trilateral Leaders Summit at Camp David last summer, which ushered in a new era of partnership between our three nations. Now, as we sit together on the Security Council, we're committed to doing more to advance our shared priorities, including women, peace, and security, climate resilience, non-proliferation, and emerging technologies. Yesterday, I had the amazing opportunity to visit Ewok Women's College, where I had the privilege of speaking about some of these priorities and the Sustainable Development Goals more broadly with former Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. I'm also learning more about the innovative approaches this country is taking to achieve these goals. Today, I'll visit the Sandu Metro Station in Seoul, which houses a sustainable vegetable garden. Food security and climate resilience are inextricably linked, and ensuring that people can feed themselves and their families with sustainable, nutritious food is a priority for the Biden administration, and it's something that I have prioritized personally. Now, there's no one-size-fits-all approach to food security, but we can all learn something from South Korea, which boasts almost zero food waste, and I think that's pretty remarkable. Finally, my third goal for this trip is to demonstrate our unwavering commitment to our allies and unwavering support for their priorities. The partnership between the United States and the Republic of Korea is the linchpin for stability and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific and throughout the world. Our shared vision for the region and the world is anchored by our commitment to democratic norms, human rights, and the rule of law at home and abroad. Core to that partnership, that steadfast commitment, are the United States soldiers and diplomats stationed here in South Korea. Over the past few days, I've had the opportunity to meet with General LaCamera and service members stationed at the DMZ, as well as Ambassador Goldberg and his team here at the U.S. Embassy in Seoul. In a few hours, I depart for Japan, where I will continue to engage on these three priorities. But I believe I have time for a few questions, and so I look forward to hearing from you, and look forward to continuing our partnership here with the government and the people of the Republic of Korea. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Ambassador. So now we would like to call a few questions from our audience, starting with Kim Jin-myung from Chosun-Ilbo.
Thank you for having this conference with us, and I'm here.
So
I have a question about the alternatives to UN panel of experts. As you said, if our goal is to have some sort of multilateral body to collect information and produce reports, I think the question comes down to whether we do this inside or outside the UN, just as you said. So my first question is, how likely do you think you are going to pursue a UN General Assembly resolution to establish another panel of experts, and what are the obstacles to obtain 2/3 majority? And my second question is, perhaps it will be easier to make something among like-minded allies, so like including Five Eyes and ROK Japan. But in that case, I think Russia or China, and perhaps both of them, will oppose to it by arguing that it will undermine the decision already made within the existing UN body. What will be your response? Thank you.
That's a very fulsome question. I do, as you noted, look forward to engaging with both Republic of Korea, Japan, but like-minded as well, on trying to develop options both inside the UN as well as outside the UN. The point here is that we cannot allow the work that the panel of experts were doing to lapse. We have to continue to keep eyes on and reporting on the illegal activities of the DPRK and efforts to break the sanctions that have been put in place. And I will note here that the veto of the panel of experts does not veto the sanctions regime. That regime stays in place. But we do need to continue to find a path on reporting. So I do think that the possibilities are there. I think we will eventually find a mechanism to continue to do that reporting. And yes, Russia and China will continue to try to block those efforts. Why? First and foremost, Russia has already been breaking the sanctions regime. They're already engaging with trade with the DPRK. They are purchasing weapons against Security Council resolutions. And they have, along with China, continued to protect the DPRK from being held accountable. And so I don't expect that they will cooperate or agree with any efforts that we make to find another path, but that is not going to stop us from finding that path moving forward.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question. We'd like to turn to Thomas Maresca from UPI.
Hi, Madam Ambassador. Thank you for doing this. Just a quick question. I wonder if you could talk about how concerned are you about North Korea possibly developing greater military cooperation with Iran in terms of either weapons transfers or sharing technology for nuclear and missile tech?
Well, I think it goes without saying that we are concerned. We are concerned about the Iranians providing weapons to the Russians, and the Russians also supporting efforts to help the DPRK expand their own research into developing weapons, and certainly that would be the case with Iran as well. So this is something that we, as well as others in the Security Council, have to be seized with. We have to look for every opportunity to call them out, but also to hold them accountable.
Thank you very much. So for our next question, we'd like to turn to Hanguk Ilbo, Ms. Moon Jae-yeon.
Thank you, Madam Ambassador, for the press conference. I have three quick questions. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller said Resolution 2728 is non-binding. Would that mean the United States government believe that the United Nations Security Council 1718 is also not legally binding as well? And my second question is the United States open to recognize Palestinian authorities full membership to the United Nations? And my last question is, what solution does the United States seek to mitigate tension in the Middle East, especially related to Israel?
Three very big questions. Look, on Security Council resolutions, we expect that countries will abide by the resolutions, that they will respect the work of the Security Council, and that goes to all cases where where the Security Council has spoken. And when we speak with a resolution, we're speaking with one voice. On the recognition issue, I think our position has been clear. President Biden has said categorically that we support a two-state solution for addressing the situation in the Middle East, where Palestinians will have a state of their own and Israel is secure in their state. And we are working on the ground to get to that place as quickly as possible. We do not see that doing a resolution in the Security Council will necessarily get us to a place where we can find a solution, a two-state solution moving forward. And now I'm forgetting, you asked about the tension in the region. Yeah, look, again, the president has been clear that we have to, since this started on October 7th, this attack on Israel, that we have to ensure that the tensions and the friction do not escalate throughout the region. And every effort that we have made over the course of the past 4 or 5 months have been to work toward de-escalation, not escalating. And we're working on this on the ground every single day. We're negotiating for a ceasefire and the release of hostages. We are working on the ground to ensure that needed humanitarian assistance is delivered to the Palestinian people, and working with all of the countries in the region to ensure that these tensions do not ignite any further.
Thank you. So for our final question, we'd like to turn it to NK News, Ifang Bremer.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Ifang Bremer. I'm with NK News. So experts we talked to, some of them, they argue that the DPRK has already developed a sufficient nuclear deterrent and that sanctions have only served to strengthen the regime's resolve. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on what evidence suggests that continued sanctions actually work to put a halt to the DPRK's nuclear program, or at this point, do they just serve as a deterrence for other nations that wish to develop nuclear weapons?
Sanctions are just one tool that we use as a deterrent. And I get questioned all the time about whether sanctions work. My response to that is, if they didn't work, countries wouldn't constantly complain about them. The DPRK does not want sanctions because they know these sanctions have hampered their ability to accomplish their goals. The other side of sanctions, however, is implementation, and we need countries to implement. And countries like Russia and Iran have not implemented these sanctions in a way that will allow them to work as effectively as they can work. But they are having an impact, and they are, I think, an effective tool to discouraging countries from moving in the direction that the DPRK is moving in at the moment.